This is the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, your gateway to the voices and stories of working people everywhere. This week, on The Labor Show, released before Tuesday's strike, Philadelphia city workers explain why 9,000 public employees were ready to walk off their job if they didn't get a fair deal.
We just trying to get our message out and let the residents of this city know that, we need their support in getting behind us and asking this administration to, work out a fair deal that's fair to us. Not only are we employees of this city, but we are the city. We represent this city.
Stick Together takes us to a rally in Melbourne, Australia, where community members are fighting to save the library social worker program that supports the most vulnerable.
The library social workers, who are subject to these brutal cuts, are absolutely crucial for our sector. They provide a safe and meaningful point of contact for the most vulnerable members of our community.
On Union Talk, nurses warn that dismantling Medicaid will be catastrophic for patients and healthcare workers across the country.
Dismantling Medicaid is going to strip access to healthcare for some of our most vulnerable populations across the country. It's going to destabilize hospitals and healthcare systems. And the sequelae of that on our healthcare providers is going to be a massive burnout.
On Writing spotlights the WGA East captains who kept the strike line strong and the spirit of solidarity alive.
I knew nobody who was doing what I was doing. And what ended up happening on that picket line was I made friends with all the late night guys and they were mostly guys at that point. And it was so much fun, right? Because they were funny and cool and fun.
Classes of Mail heads out to New Mexico to hear from wind energy project managers grappling with a work site so massive it takes hours just to drive across.
I would say this job site is just the most massive one that I know both of us have tried to handle. I have some of my guys that leave this yard hour and 30-minute drive down to where they're working right now.
Wherever you are, these voices are working to build power, protect their communities, and fight for a better future. I'm Chris Garlock, and that's all coming up on this week's edition of the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly.
And welcome in, everyone, to the Labor Show with J-Doc and Krause. Today is Saturday, June 28th. If my math is correct, we're about 57 hours away from the stroke of midnight on Monday. And when we reach that point, the union that represents about 9,000 city employees, J-Doc, their one-year contract that they signed a year ago will expire, and they are set to strike if a resolution is not found between now and that deadline Monday at midnight.
So let's do this. Without further ado, let me bring into the program the president of DC 33, Greg Boulware, and I believe the vice president, Antoine Little, is also either joining us or will be joining us. Greg, how are you, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well.
And so, I'm in. Oh, so we got Antoine. How are you, sir?
Yep. Yes, I'm here. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and I really appreciate your time today, guys. I know you're incredibly busy. We talked several times yesterday, and I woke up in the middle of the night, at 4:00, and I had a text from midnight last night, and about you guys just finishing up for the night, no progress. Okay, and so here we are. Okay, and let's first of all, Greg, remind our listeners who you guys represent.
We represent District Council 33, all the public service workers across the city of Philadelphia. That means trash, the sanitation unit, the highway division that control and repair the lights and the roadways. That's the water department that controls the infrastructure for drinking water and wastewater and water main repairs. That's our librarians. That's our medical examiner's office. That's our airport workers unions, DHS, revenue, finance, parks and recs, fleet management that repairs all the city vehicles. We can go on and on, but our membership touches every inch of the city from one end to the other.
And so let's be clear. because, you know how the rumor mill goes. You guys have not settled this contract, okay? You've been working hard, but you are not, obviously, there's no progress there. Antoine, you want to jump in there?
Sure. I mean, we've been we negotiated last night till the 11th hour, and we walked away with no deal done. We just trying to get our message out and let the residents of this city know that we need their support in getting behind us and asking this administration to work out a fair deal that's fair to us. Not only are we employees of this city, but we are the city. We represent this city.
No question about it. Talk about how. So last year we had a number of shows. Obviously, you guys in good faith, worked incredibly hard to put yourself in a position where the city has to also do the same exact thing. Talk about that situation. Okay, from a year ago, you guys. You did a 1-year contract, like I said, in good faith, so that the city would reciprocate now. Talk about that and what's supposed to be happening right now.
Well, we did. We signed an extension a year ago. We got the 5%, and it wasn't a given thing. We had to fight for that. We had to go out and do a strike validation situation for that as well. So it wasn't as if it was just readily given to us. It was something that we had to fight and we earned for. We believe we deserve much more than what we received then, and we hold that position now. And that was a good faith effort to negotiate through the winter to continue moving in a progressive direction that would shorten the gap between what our men and women make on average and what it costs to live inside the city of Philadelphia. Whatever that number may be, we set our benchmark for our proposal at 8% for each year over the course of a 4-year deal. But there's absolutely always been room to wiggle and move in a way that works for both entities. We wanted to sign a 4-year deal back in the fall because we knew that there was a possibility of a Trump administration coming in and throwing things into financial turmoil all over the place. And that's exactly what is happening. And unfortunately, that's exactly one of the reasons that the city is using right now because of the financial crunch that said that they cannot afford to pay our men and women a fair wage that they absolutely deserve.
Guys, thanks so much for being on the broadcast. And we're
Thanks
here
for having us.
Our pleasure. You got it.
Hey, you're listening to the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, bringing you the latest from the front lines of the labor movement, one podcast at a time.
Hey, this is Judy Ansell from the Heartland Labor Forum. We're radio that talks back to the boss, and we're proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network with more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts from across the country and around the world. The Labor Radio Podcast Network, where working people speak. Find us at laborradionetwork.org.
Hi, everybody. My name is Louis, as Jazz pointed out. Thank you. I am a social worker here in Marybeck. I'm a proud Australian Services Union member, and I'm also a member of the Victorian Socialists. We are currently witnessing, or at least I think that we are currently witnessing, the complete collapse of our social and community services sector. The intensification of housing inaccessibility in our communities is forcing working class people back out into the streets and into homelessness. Victoria is in fact a leader in housing stress, with more working class people experiencing housing pressure here in Victoria than anywhere else in the whole country. Across Australia, over 3 million of us are currently experiencing this housing pressure, and we are on the verge of homelessness. That's 3 million of us that are on the verge of homelessness across the country. This housing crisis is truly unprecedented. And as always, it is working class families who have to bear the brunt of the system's failures. And it is against this devastating backdrop that the Marybeck Council has shamefully decided to cut an essential social worker program that is providing life-saving support to the most vulnerable people in our communities. The library social workers who are subject to these brutal cuts are absolutely crucial for our sector. They provide a safe and meaningful point of contact for the most vulnerable members of our community, helping them access vital housing support, employment programs, and essential health and education resources. These are the supports that actually breathe life back into our communities. The sector right now is facing so many cuts, so many hiring freezes, so many redundancies and service closures that we honestly feel like it is on the verge of collapse. Burnout amongst workers is endemic, and we're expected to continue to carry all of the different traumas of capitalism as they bring hunger, homelessness, addiction, and mental illness into the lives of working class people. Whether the Marybeck Council or, in fact, the Labor government, resources continue to be funneled out of public housing, out of mental health, out of AOD programs, and out of education, creating the conditions for the sorts of social disintegration that bring about a rise in crime, a rise in drug abuse, a rise in mental illness, and of course a rise in homelessness. As we speak, so we are here today, as we know, to call on the Marybeck Council to let them know that we will defend our social worker, that we will defend our community, and that we will say no to these cuts. So thank you.
And that's it for Stick Together this week.
Hello, powerful people. This is Seth Harris from the Power at Work blog. We're proud to be a part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network. It has more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts from across the country and around the world. The Labor Radio Podcast Network, where working people speak. Find us at laborradionetwork.org. That's all one word, laborradionetwork.org. Thanks.
Welcome, everyone, to Union Talk. And today we are talking about one of the most consequential things going on in Washington today that mostly no one knows about. And that's what Donald Trump calls the big, beautiful bill, and what I call the big betrayal. And we want to kind of unpack it with people who will actually have to face the consequences of it in the field if this bill actually passes and becomes law. So that's why I'm so glad to be talking to Shannon Davenport, who is a mental health nurse and the president of the Alaska Nurses Association. Heather Broth, who is a PACU nurse at Bacchus Health, I should say, dealing with post-op patients.
We actually call this the desecration of humanity bill. As a mental health nurse, my population of individuals is actually directly affected by these cuts. We're a very large state, but we have a smaller population. When you think about it, for such a big state, we only have about 500,000 people. So, and over 68% of our population is actually covered by Medicaid. And 92% of them are our mental health population. So I've had patients come to me and are scared because they're not sure how they're going to get their medications. They're terrified that all the recovery that they've done, all the work that they've done is going to go away because they won't have Medicaid to help support them with their outpatient therapy or their medications. On the other hand, I'm also a hospice nurse. So I have patients' families coming to me and asking me, are they going to take the medications away from my dying parent or my child? And these are real facts that we're facing, not even to assess how the rural population that we have here. We have a very large rural population here in Alaska, and they're predominantly covered by Medicaid. These are kids who are going to go without preventative care, basic vaccinations, basic checkups. You're going to see more people in our ERs, more people in our hospitals, and sicker people who are highly acute that we can't care for.
I am honored to come on and discuss such an important and potentially life-altering bill for so many of the members of our community here in Norwich. at Bacchus, which is in southeastern part of Connecticut, about 50% of the women that deliver babies at Bacchus Hospital utilize the services of Planned Parenthood as well as Medicaid for their insurance. So one of the huge cuts that they're looking at in this bill is to rip apart Planned Parenthood services.
Right.
So, I mean, Planned
Basically,
Parenthood,
completely decimate them.
correct,
Go on.
correct, which is a wild, like that would be a wild atrocity for our small community, but for the nation as a whole. I think that a lot of people don't even realize a lot of mothers are using it for care, obstetric care and prenatal care going into their deliveries. So they are actually utilizing the services all for contraceptive reasons, but also for birth planning and to have safe child delivery and get a birth plan in place in areas of the state in this country that they may not have access to those kind of services or obstetric services readily without the access to a Planned Parenthood type facility. Dismantling Medicaid is going to strip access to healthcare for some of our most vulnerable populations across the country. It's going to destabilize hospitals and healthcare systems. And the sequelae of that on our healthcare providers is going to be a massive burnout and a run from healthcare and bedside nursing and bedside care in general.
This is Union Talk.
Stay tuned. More voices, more stories, and more solidarity coming up from the Labor Radio Podcast Network.
You're listening to On Writing, a podcast from the Writers Guild of America East.
In each episode, you'll hear from the union members who create film, TV series, podcast, and news stories that define our culture.
We'll discuss everything from inspirations and creative process to what it takes to build a successful career in media and entertainment.
The three of us are captains in the film TV streaming sector of the WGAE. In today's podcast, we are going to discuss the importance of the Captains Network in our union, because we are really important.
The WGAE Captains Network is made up of a group of dedicated and engaged members who connect other members in their workplace and networks to their union and have baseball hats that say WGA Captain.
Which is 90% of why I agreed to the gig.
100% if she is being honest. As captains, we work to build community for members and to facilitate communication from our teams to union leadership and staff. Captains further the Guild's ability to provide effective union representation for each and every member, especially you. Yeah, you.
Okay, I guess we should start with who we are. Who are we?
Who are we?
I'm Devin Delaquanti. I am a writer. I work currently at The Daily Show, and I've written recently on the Grammy Awards, a couple Jordan Klepper specials, one of which is coming out soon. I'll throw it to Sarah. Sarah, who are you?
Hi, I'm Sarah Montana. I joined the Guild in 2020 in March, literally right as the pandemic was starting, which was just like optimal timing. And I primarily write rom-coms. Suzanne, take it away.
Hi, I am Suzanne Weber. I have been a member of the Guild, I think, since the Guild started. I think I was a founding member of the Writers Guild. I became a member because I was doing comedy in New York and I had a character and I was able to get a development deal off of that.
Suzanne, I mean, you have more experience with this, but like we were able to do a lot more and hit the ground running and have more pickets and have more actions during 2023 than I think during the 2007-2008 strike, right?
Yeah, so I was a part of that as well. I mean, I was here and I knew, again, I like Sarah, like I was excited to join the union, but I didn't really, I was like, yeah, I'm going to call them occasionally. Mostly for me, it was like health insurance, and then it's like, but that's actually run by a separate entity. So, but it was not very, I liked being a part of a union, but I didn't know it didn't occur to me how to be involved. But I did know when we went on strike that not only did I defend us going on strike vociferously to agents and producers, I was very much in the thick of things at that point. I had things in development. I mean, I was really in it, and I was still like, we're going on strike. Like it just was so clear to me. I understood what the strike was and how important it was. And there was a lot of pushback from the people, agents and producers and studios, people that I was working with, like, this is ruining the industry and this is this, and you writers and whatever. And I was like, well, this is how it works. Like, I don't know what to tell you. This is how it works, and what are you seriously asking of us to like give up the one bit of power that we have, which is to walk away? You guys know to do that in negotiations all the time. So I was on the picket line, and I was actually going to say, I don't know why Devin would even care much about this, but when I was on the picket line in 2007, 2008, I was also, because I was developing, knew no other writers. Like, I had no community. I knew nobody who was doing what I was doing. And what ended up happening on that picket line was I made friends with all the late night guys and they were mostly guys at that point. And it was so much fun, right? Because they were funny and cool and fun. And you were like, oh, like, here you are.
A lot has changed.
Yeah. They're still guys, but they're just not as fun and funny.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was nice. It's not great because you're on a strike, but the sense of community.
On Writing is a production of the Writers Guild of America East.
You'll find all these shows and hundreds more at laborradionetwork.org, because your work has a voice.
Well, Chris and Carissa, I just want to say thanks for doing this. First of all, like, your guys' time is precious. I know I've been on enough of these sites that guys like you are hard to pin down. So I appreciate your time and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We'll talk about this project a little bit. What is this project? Run me through it a little bit. Explain, to my audience a little bit about the wind side of a major project like SunZia.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So we're in Corona, New Mexico, and we are building a wind farm with 672 turbines. So we're pretty far spread out. It's probably 2-hour drive from the northern tower to the southern. So we're definitely covering a lot of land here. We are in the final zone for our civil work. And then we have our foundations kind of in the 5-6 zone. Collections is also in kind of like the 3-4 stage of completion. And then we have our install group in like the 2nd and 3rd stages. So there's a lot going on, from the top to bottom. And yeah, I don't know, anything else?
Yeah, I would say this job site is just the most massive one that I know both of us have tried to handle, and there's so many moving parts and pieces. And she said a good thing, 2 hours. When she called me to come to this, it took me 45 minutes by highway. I have some of my guys that leave this yard, hour and 30-minute drive down to where they're working right now. So that's one of our biggest things was windshield time. How do we combat that? You want to start work, say 8 a.m., you're going to drive an hour and a half out, an hour and a half in. So you just lost 3 hours right there of production for the day. And the most dangerous thing we can ask our men to do is drive on a public roadway.
Yeah.
So that's just some of the things we face is on this job. I mean, the biggest part is just the trades working together. I mean, no one can move until I move, till the roads are built, sites are built. And then you go from there. Mike and Dylan take over with foundations, getting all the foundations put in place. Then we're back again, civil guys. Get it to where the install guys can come in. It's a lot of turning wheels, meshing together to work, and that's what we do in this office every day is make sure those wheels are turning and align with each other. Because if not, we've had collisions, and it happens,
Not actual collisions.
No, yeah. But I mean, it's like, we're stuck. This trade can't move until this one moves, I think that's what we do the most of, is just trying to ensure that that does not happen. And it takes a lot. I mean, she said it, 14, 15, 16 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, whatever it takes. That's what, when you're on salary, that's what you do. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. Hope to see you again soon. We'll see you again soon. Peace.
While we've just heard some incredible stories of worker action, there are so many more voices and struggles happening every day. Too many for any single show to cover. That's why Harold Phillips joins us each week to spotlight a few more of the powerful podcasts and broadcasts you'll find across the Labor Radio Podcast Network. From union vets fighting for their rights, to bold acts of civil disobedience, to practical advice for your retirement, these are the stories that keep the labor movement alive and connected. Here's Harold with this week's roundup of shows you should know.
Thanks, Chris. Social media guy Harold Phillips here, folks, and you've just listened to powerful stories of worker action. But I know there are a lot more stories like that on the Labor Radio Podcast Network than Chris and Captain Swing can fit into a half-hour show. That's why I'm here every week, with a few more shows you should know. On the Working People Podcast, Max speaks with activists who were arrested for protesting the so-called Big Beautiful Bill on Capitol Hill. They break down what's actually in this sweeping legislation, why it's a threat to working families, and how ordinary people are fighting back. On Solidarity Works, United Steelworkers veterans take their cause to Washington, D.C., demanding lawmakers honor their commitments to veterans. It's a moving look at how unions defend those who served and the promises that must be kept. Phil holds down the fort this week on the Workers' Mic with an important conversation about retirement. He sits down with Megan Financial to share practical tips on planning for a secure future and making the most of union benefits. From Los Angeles' resistance to ICE raids with historian Enrique Ochoa to shutting down Palantir offices with organizer Alice Hu, the Green and Red podcast spotlights bold actions against surveillance and exploitation. Get an early look inside the July issue of Labor Notes on the Labor Notes podcast. This episode covers Indiana grocery workers who rejected a weak contract and broader reflections on the growing authoritarian threats workers are organizing to resist. And United Electrical President Carl Rosen joins the Heartland Labor Forum to talk about how his union has organized 30,000 graduate workers while still representing huge industrial shops, and how democracy and activism remain at the core of UE's identity. And that's just a few of the dozens of episodes released over the past week. If you want to find links to these or other labor radio shows or podcasts in the network, you know where to go. laborradionetwork.org. And if you want to find out what labor podcasts and radio shows are talking about, be sure to follow us on social media at Labor Radio Net, on Blue Sky, and on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. For now. Okay, Chris, back to you. And hey, I hope you got some rest over the 4th of July weekend, because it's a brand new week, and the struggle is far from over.
And that's a wrap for this week's edition of the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly. Our roundup of some of the programs aired over the last week on more than 200 labor radio and podcast shows. They're all part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network. They're all part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, shows that focus on working people's issues and concerns. We've got links to all the network shows, laborradionetwork.org. You can also find them. Use the hashtag LaborRadioPod on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, all that good stuff. Don't forget, let us know what you think of the show. Drop us a note, info@laborradionetwork.org. You can be part of the network. You don't even need a microphone. Labor Radio Podcast Network t-shirts are available. They're union made. You'll find them in all sizes and 2 colors at laborradionetwork.org. This podcast is recorded under a SAG-AFTRA collective bargaining agreement. The Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, edited this week by Captain Swing. I produce the show. Our social media guru, always and forever, is Mr. Harold Phillips. For the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, this has been Chris Garlock. Stay active, stay tuned to your local Labor Radio Podcast show. We will see you next week.